So let's do this shit again. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and in the meantime also welcome myself back to YouTube, as it's been a while since I've made a video. In this video I'm gonna be talking about Pigment 6. It seems everything is talking about it. Let's see what's what. So here we have it. It's quite a thing. It's come to the 6th version of itself. It was released in I remember, was it 2017? And it was originally a much smaller synth. It only had this analog and the wavetable engine and a lot less features, and now it's a much more full-fledged instrument, and in my opinion a lot more interesting, especially since in a couple of versions ago they added multi-core support. Anyway, I'll go around the structure of the synth a bit and say, that there's nothing to be surprised, and it's one of those synths in which, well, you might want to check the manual, but it won't help you that much unless you are, it's quite straightforward. We have the main sound sources here with a lot of parameters, each one, anyhow you set them. In this case, they're set both to the most somehow modern and edgy sound engines. One is harmonic, which is an additive sound engine, and the other one is a modal one, which is basically some sort of physical modeling, car plus strong on synthesis on steroids, where you can change the ratio of harmonics, and that gives a lot of interesting possibilities that you wouldn't have using a simple comb filter, which, by the way, you can use just using a filter. And these also offer the more traditional approaches, like this analog, which is basically a sort of a mini Moog-like oscillator block with some FM and added bells and whistles. And there's this wavetable, which is, but there's plenty of ways to mangle the waves, and a lot of wavetables, really a lot of wavetables, all sorted up into categories, but I'm quite disappointed by the fact that there is no wavetable editor. When they made this synth, which is so pretty and so nice, why didn't they put a wavetable editor into it? Then there is the sample engine, which is pretty interesting, also being a granular engine and offering a bunch of possibilities when you think of it combined with all the other engines this offers. It is quite straightforward that you could use, say, a wavetable engine to create this deep didgeridoo note, while a granular engine adds some sort of metallic sounds, while the utility engine gives us, because the utility engine here is quite a thing in itself. It's two samplers, very simple samplers actually, and an equally simple oscillator giving only the usual suspect waveforms on top of it, which I would typically say not really on top of it as much as on the bottom of it, as this is the case in this patch, and in most patches you would think of doing. By the way, it's perfect candidate for being the sub oscillator. As here in this patch, where I am using these both these oscillators as analog and both filters as being, analog emulations of filters, which is just what you would expect from the company that made this synth, which is Arturia. Arturia, yes, I would say Arturia because I'm speaking English, but I'm Italian, and so I would be thinking of saying Arturia. But then I wonder, aren't these people French? So supposedly they gave their company a name which has two R's in it. So it's two R's by people who notoriously have a hard time saying R's. So in order just to be more respectful towards the developers and the people who made this, I will call these Arturia or Arturia, I don't know, one or the other. I want it to be clear, I'm not mocking them, I'm just trying plainly to be respectful. So, as you would expect from Arturia, the filters are quite amazing. Yes, they made all the synth V something, you know, there were the Minimoog V, the Modular V, the whatever V, the Jupiter V, the anything V. And that was quite their thing, but they didn't stop there. Here, the synth offers a bunch of other filters which are, well, really, there's really a lot to choose from. Even the classic ones have a lot of unusual steepness, and they're two, and you can route things up mostly however you want, sending oscillators to one or the other or both, setting them into series or parallel, and then sending one or the other in different ways to the effects, because here you have three blocks of effects, each one containing possibly three effects, while the third is actually in a send channel. And you can decide how to set up the way what you send to one to the other, if they're in series, in parallel, just as you did with the filters. One thing you can't do here actually is, you see the filters, the oscillators and filters, every type of engine anyway has this filter knob, which allows you to decide whether you're sending it to filter 1, filter 2, or both, but you cannot send it to neither, and just skip the effect section, or skips the filter or the effect section altogether, which is something you might appreciate once in a while. Back on the engines, the harmonic engine is quite a thing. It's an additive synth. I mean, I suppose I don't need to explain what additive synthesis is. Somehow it is one of the most expensive way, computational-wise, to do a lot of things, but it has the possibility of doing a bunch of things you cannot really do in other ways, generating sound that are entirely non-harmonic. Well, yeah, you could do things like that with convoluted uses of FM, but this is way more straightforward and has a lot of interesting possibilities, especially when you consider that it is within this synth, so you're not bound to use it and to use this and only this. I mean, you can definitely use simpler, less computationally intensive approaches for most patches, and then get the additive flair when you need it. And the modal engine has a bunch of other interesting possibilities, from these strings, if you use the friction, which have a distinct character, you will agree, to other things. Combining these engines together gives us pretty much a lot of possibilities. Let's, well, see some. This last patch reminded me the synth also has quite an interesting, if not amazing, arpeggiator, which you wouldn't find in most other synths. It's quite an arpeggiator and a sequencer and sends MIDI out, which is quite a thing. Now, with all this about sources and filters, let's get to look at the modulators with the usual suspect: velocity after touch, mod wheel, keyboard, expression pedal, 3 envelopes, 3 LFOs, 3 function generators, 3 random generators, 3 combinators, and 4 macros. There's 3 effects blocks, each containing 3 effects, and 3 of each of these modulators. They have a thing for 3, but then they have 4 macros like everyone else. Or, well, others have 8. Others have 4 or 8 LFOs, or 6 envelopes, or things like that, or possibility to put an arbitrary number of them, pulling them out of a hat. And here on this synth I use as a controller, which is a Korg Z1 from the mid-90s, I had 4 envelopes and 4 LFOs because it was a physical modeling synth. Here I have everything for doing physical modeling and things like that, and I only have 3 of all these, which is even more annoying if you think that, if you look at these are actually pretty amazing. You can see that these envelopes and the LFOs, I can change the retriggering source of each one of them, which is pretty cool. I mean, I can make, if in a context where I had a synth with a bunch of more of these and more random generators or other ways of, creating interest, this could be amazing for making generative patches. If I had, maybe even just with those random generators, but with more possibilities of combining them, just by not having just those 3 combinators, but having more extensive mod remapping possibilities. Like in a synth which maybe had the other big absent thing here, which is a mod matrix. Yes, because this synth has no mod matrix. There is no way to modulate modulations. Well, actually, there is the fact that every single modulation can be sidechained to another one, but you cannot directly control modulations or control the amount of modulation, how much you modulate modulations. And this isn't really great, also because all these modulations, as you can see, you really have a hard time setting up anything else about it. You see, this modulation is, you can copy them, but you cannot change the curvature of them. You cannot do much about those. They are how they are, and that's quite a limitation in my book. So, last but not least, let's talk about the things the people at Arturia have surely been working the most, which is the patch browser. In the patch browser, if I go out of my pesky 44 user patches, I'm here and with this 1615 presets made by amazing sound designers at Arturia or somewhere else. There are a lot of people here involved. It was a massive project, clearly. Now, if I know there's this one, there's also mine, so actually theirs were a little smaller. So if I go here and say I click on one of those, I see that this one, there's more info on this. It's a melodic sequence made by Two Lag Stoneworks, and it has all these tags which fit it. It's bright, chord, Detroit techno, but house, and filtered, funky, modern, melodic, reverb. Okay, techno. Anyway, we can get another one, and we will get the same stuff we get. This is Gustavo Bravetti. Nice sound. And if I get looking at this sound here, I will see that there is this light bulb, and so it shows me a picture of Gustavo Bravetti, always in love with music and technology. Musician, producer, and live performer, Gustavo started programming synths and computers in the late 80s. Nowadays, he fulfills his childhood dreams. I wish I did as well. There's comments about the patch. That's surely a very nice patch. And here you see, here we have this yellow circles around things. These tell you where Gustavo Bravetti here intended the patch to work. Well, it's, these are suggestions, not that I have anything against them. They surely make sense. And yeah, it could make sense to add more resonance. And it says, yeah, but no more than that. No more than this, because Gustavo Bravetti thinks that if you put more resonance, this stops sounding like the way it intended. well, he has a point, it totally has. There the sound breaks, and if I go below this, well, somehow it also does. The point here, I mean, we need to properly hear this resonant frequency of the filter, and that's where it wants it to be. What could I have to argue with? Well, one thing actually, the fact that the people at Arturia think that editing this yellow thing here is an advanced feature. So, you know, if I want to edit that, to decide where, in my opinion, a patch works or is broken, I have to declare that I know what I'm doing. And with this comes another interesting thing. You see, if I say new preset, so I have a completely new one, let me change something just for the sake of it. And then I say here, I say, I want to save this preset. And now I save it, and it tells me that, of course, this name is default. I'll need to write one, and it just lets me the keyboard to do so. But it tells me the author is Arturia. And why is this? If you look at my user folder, it turns out every single preset, it was made by Neonbug, which was one of my earlier artistic identities I keep signing my presets with. But and why can't it remember that, you know, I do my patches and I have a name or an artist name, and not try to steal my patches anytime I make one and I maybe forget that I made this. You know, not that I made the patch, that I forget to put my name into it. You know, that most synths don't do this. Most modern synths remember who I am once I save the patch, and this does not. So, in a nutshell, my whole of complaints about Pigments is that, well, why didn't they think about people programming it? I mean, I have no objections about the fact that it's a very nice synth, that it's made with a lot of interesting patches, but it is not a nice synth to program for what it has. I mean, I have all this immense number of parameters, immense number of things I could move and I could modulate. I have all these possibilities, and I don't have enough modulators to make things the way I would want them. Well, yes, of course I could. It could be more of a complex concoction, thinking of how I'm doing this, but I just wonder, why can't they, like everyone else, give me more LFOs and more envelopes? It's such a French thing. I mean, it was like when Citroën used to put, you know, like you moved a lever you thought you were turning on or off the windshield wipers, and actually the boot came open, you know, something like that. It's just pointless. Why? I mean, I have a synth that offers me a monster amount of synth engines. I mean, most non-modular synths don't have it, and even most modular ones don't give me all this. I mean, if I wanted to make something such as a modal oscillator in Faceplant, I'd had to go quite crazy, and it would be even way more computationally expensive than here. Also, yes, computationally expensive. This is another problem. I mean, this synth is heavy. I mean, my computer is old, so I can complain just a bit, but it's really, really heavy. It recently got multi-core support, but you have to remember turning it on every time you start the synth, just like reminding him what your name is every time you save a patch. And I can't fathom why this synth doesn't remember these basic things about itself, about how I like to play it, how I do things. You know, can you remember that we live in a world where, you know, you're in an operating system where you can safely use your multi-core support and things work? Can't you remember that? No, it can't. So, ultimately, what do I think about it? I don't like it. I really don't like it, but I'm using it. Yes, I'm using it in my music. You may hear it in the beginning of the last track of my album. I released something like a year ago. It's exactly that patch of the didgeridoo I heard you hear in the beginning of this video, and it works. It does a lot of nice things, but I don't like it, and I don't like it because seems people with synth geeks, people with certain kind of mentality would like to do certain things with this synth were not involved. And if you look at the programming, and if you look at how the patches, even the presets are made, even the good ones, it's very, very straightforward. It could be considered to be a feature and not a bug. But for me, it's a bit of a bug. I wish I could make use of all these parameters. Wish I could make use of making things change in more intricate and complex ways, make macros, make more different things happen or appear, and I can't do that because I have very little number of modulators, and I have no mod matrix to set things up properly, and that's a shame. So, thank you very much for staying with me for this long, and I hope I'll see you very soon. I'll be making new videos. I'm back. I'm really back. If you were wondering what I've been doing for this year something, well, that was mostly teaching maths and physics to high school kids, not any younger, because that would be inhuman. Anyway, since you've been here, if you haven't already, if you haven't subscribed already, do please. You clearly like to hear me talk, or you have a masochistic problem with yourself, so you should subscribe. And if you can, or if you wish, whatever, leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about this video, if you hated it, what you want to hear in my upcoming videos. My next video will, in all likelihood, be about Zibberlab 3, but don't necessarily count too much about it. Well, all this said, bye. Nice to be back.